Check, check, check.
Welcome back, and we resume our third session. To moderate this session, Brother Ajay Kumar is here, and the dash is yours, Brother Ajay Kumar, and you will moderate. Thank you.
Welcome everyone. This is the last session. So I welcome the panelists here, like Andre from ILO, Social Protection Officer, Nabaraj, General Secretary, Joint Trade Union Coordination Center, Sarina from Indonesia, Ramon, Project Coordinator, Industrial All, Philippines, Mahindra, Vice President, Nepal Trade Union Congress. So like everyone will have 10 minutes each to express their views and present. And after that, we will have a discussion with the floor and any questions we have. So I will like to welcome Andre to present.
Well, good afternoon, all colleagues, and welcome to Nepal. First of all, I would like to, on behalf of the ILO, to thank for the invitation for the pleasure of speaking to such a lively network of trade unionists in Asia. And it's my personal pleasure to be here. So, thank you so much. Today, we'll be speaking a little bit about the role of social protection in protecting workers in times of crisis. And I think it's difficult to talk about crisis lately without the recent experience of COVID-19 and how it impacted not just the lives of work, but the lives of everyone around the world. And what the lessons were learned, if were learned, and how we can move forward towards a future where we are better prepared for such crisis, and how we can continue to fight and expand social protection for all as a right as it is. So, speaking a little bit on the how social protection was, the role of social protection during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was a crisis that we never seen before. Social protection on itself is a tool, is an instrument to mitigate individual risk and collective risk. But it's difficult to mitigate the risk when everybody is affected. And this was really a stress test to many countries and to many social security systems around the world. The systems that were stronger were able to react faster and more efficiently. The systems that were a bit weaker struggled a little bit more. And this revealed a lot of gaps, a lot of structural weaknesses, and a lot of challenges that were already experienced before in many contexts, but now it was felt around the world. It's estimated that around 2 billion informal workers around the world were completely unprotected during the COVID crisis. I know here in Nepal the number is estimated between 1 million and 4 million workers being directly affected by the lockdowns, by the preventive measures, and by the economic effects of the crisis. And the response that happened around the world was varied in terms of adequacy, coverage, scope, and timing as well. But the majority of not yet, please. One step back. Thank you. But some of the key features that, if we can take a bit of a silver lining out of the crisis, it revealed the role of social protection, it reinforced the role of social protection as a key instrument on supporting people during times of crisis. And also, it highlighted the importance of strong social protection systems before crises occur. Particularly in the case of COVID-19, sickness and unemployment benefits were largely felt where they were missing, and where they were present, the countries could quickly respond to the needs. Please. So there was massive expansion of social security systems around the world to support workers and their families during the crisis. In the majority of the interventions put in place revolved around 4 major areas. The first one being extending access to health care, making sure that those that were sick had access to the health care that they needed to guarantee that they could survive the disease, but also to prevent them from spreading even more. Secondly, protecting the incomes of the families and the workers, as many, particularly the workers in the informal sector, lost access to livelihoods, lost jobs, and this was made mainly through direct cash transfer, by expanding existing programs, by creating new programs, by reducing eligibility or making it more flexible, the access to social protection measures, and also by expanding the amounts being disbursed by some social protection, social assistance programs. Thirdly, protecting enterprises and jobs, so subsidies to employment, flexibilizing payments of social security for companies so that they reduce the risk, reduce the financial burden on enterprises during the crisis, so that they were less likely to have to fire workers as a measure to keep themselves afloat, but at the same time supporting with wage subsidies, flexibilizing measures to keep the pay of the workers, extended leaves, flexibilizing leaves, so that companies would suffer less from the reduced revenues, and consequently that the workers would not have to pay the price for it. And lastly, particularly focused on the health workforce, was flexibilizing and improving the access to childcare and other social services, so that these workers could continue to do their life-saving works during the pandemic. Because if you are a nurse and you need to be concerned if where are your kids, if your family is well taken care of, when you're returning home, if you're putting them at risk because you are there exposed to the virus, all these are measures that really could support the well-being and of the workers and their families on this. And a lot of was done is still haven't been evaluated. We still haven't fully come out of the crisis. So and understanding what worked best and what worked not so good, it's very important for that in the future we are better prepared to respond faster and more effectively to what we learned in this recent couple of years. Please. So social protection, besides the direct health interventions to fight a disease, to fight the pandemic, social protection was also a very, very key frontline response. There was 211 countries that put in place at least one measure of social protection during the pandemic as a response to protect their workers and their families. And in a total, almost 2,000 measures were put in place around the world. The majority of them were income security protection, unemployment protection, and health access protection. And what was very evident was that countries that had good systems in place already, they could easily respond, they could easily expand, they had systems, they had data, they knew what they had to do, they had the capacity, they had the resources at hand, and they had a government that was backing them up. The response was quicker, was more effective, and saved lives, and prevented misery and poverty in many places. Countries that struggled already before the crisis were the ones that had more challenging reality to put forward measures that were effective and quick. I personally experienced in my previous posting a planning process for a response to the crisis that took 9 months to come out of the door. And it's not necessarily a very fast emergency response if it takes 9 months to get out of the door. But it came out, and it did help, particularly in the third wave, that nobody thought at the time we started the planning it would come, but it still made a difference independently of the delay. But the lesson was very much learned. The systems had to be in place before. This in Asia and the Pacific. Please, next slide. In Asia and the Pacific, the response was very strong as well. So out of all the countries in the region, 40 countries put in place responses, social protection responses to COVID, summing up to 425 measures. And although the distribution seems very similar to the global distribution on the right side of the slide, the priorities were quite different. In Asia, although income protection was indeed the main instrument, as it was in the rest of the world, Asia invested much more in access to health care. Asia invested much more in general income support, which includes supporting companies, waiving social security contributions, subsidizing wages, and etc., and also protecting the elderly, while the world invested a little bit more in unemployment support, in sickness support, and protecting food and nutrition access. If we look at the different measures, and perhaps one of the key things that we need to look is that although the crisis was affecting everybody in society, the majority of the measures were looking at supporting the working age population. The 40.7% of the measures put in place in Asia Pacific were targeted at the working age population. But if we look at how the sources of funding to finance these measures is composed, only 23% of the measures were financed by contributory social security, and more than 70% was financed by direct tax revenue. And this is particularly in this room where we have so many labor activists and trade union leaders. We shouldn't be looking just at the contributory system, because a lot of workers are supported by non-contributory measures, and they're the different sides of the same coin. And when in times of crisis particularly, sometimes the tax finance social security is much more flexible and much faster in acting than the very regulated and very structured contributory systems. So being involved in the discussions of the whole social protection system is very important for protecting workers, be that through improved and better contributory schemes, but also more effective and more extensive non-contributory schemes as well that work in coordination. In terms of the preparedness of the region, we can see that perhaps the region was not super prepared to respond fast to COVID with social security schemes, because more than half, 52% of the measures put in place were new, were completely new. The government had to start from scratch to put forward these measures. And this takes time, this takes effort, while a well-structured systems allows for improving, extending coverage, facilitating administrative processes, facilitating financial arrangements if the mechanisms are in place from the start. Please, next slide. And this is, and now, now that the crisis is subsidizing and hopefully fading away forever, the main question is, out of this almost 2,000 measures put in place around the world, how many are going to stay behind? How many rights, how many guarantees are this crisis really created and really serve to strengthen the social security systems, or all these 2,000 programs are just going to vanish as soon as the virus is gone? Before the pandemic, less than 50% of the population around the world had access to at least one social security benefit. And less than 20% had access to comprehensive social security. In Asia, the situation was a little bit below the global average, with just 44% of the population have access to any social protection at all. But if we look at the distribution of the different branches of social security, we see that while the older persons are well protected, more than 70% of the older persons have access to social security, less than 15% of the unemployed have access to any social security schemes. Less than 20% of children in the region have access to social security. Less than, about 20% of the population, of the vulnerable population, have access to any social security benefits. So there is still a steep hill to be climbed, and protecting workers and their families is a very smart and is a very good entryway to protect the whole family. We know social security by itself doesn't guarantee a prosperous and well-lived life, but is an essential aspect that needs to be available when it's needed for everyone. Please. Now that the crisis is almost behind us, there is a lot of conversation about, oh my God, we spent so much money on the response to COVID. Can we keep this up? There is a lot of discussions in many countries around austerity, reversing the investments made, how can we afford the response that we did? And this puts a lot of countries with a very hard choice in front of them, which is to continue to invest in social protection or to roll out into the austerity mode, let's say, where benefits are cut, benefits are reduced, the state tries to tighten its belt, and we know that usually the ones that need it the most are the ones that the first to fall off the protection. So now the big challenge that we have as a community that supports social protection, that supports the rights of workers, that supports the well-being and solidarity, is to ensure that countries choose the high road, choose to continue to promote universal social protection, just continue to support extending coverage and inclusion for all, adequate protection, not just something to say that was implemented and that's it, but also to increase the sustainability of the systems, to make the financing schemes and mechanisms behind Social Security to be stronger and more effective, and to ensure that in the next crisis, and we know that many countries are already suffering from the next crisis, systems are ready to be able to respond faster and more effectively, so that if there is suffering, it's the least and the most the most that we can do as fast as we can. So I'll stop for now and leave a few resources. I'm pretty sure you cannot read any of them, but I hope this will be circulated with all the resources that the ILO has around the COVID crisis and the responses, and also how to ensure social protection for all workers around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andre, for putting up a informative presentation and pointing out the benefits of social protection and how it can help in the long run. Next, I'd like to invite Navaraj from Nepal to make his case.
धन्यवाद। नमस्ते। GLU अञ्जुलिका सदस्यज्यूहरू, नमस्ते। GLU अञ्जुलिका सदस्यज्यूहरू, आइएलओका प्रतिनिधिज्यू, सार्कमा पाल्नुभएका प्रतिनिधिज्यूहरू, यहाँ उपस्थित रहनुभएका सम्पूर्ण सङ्घ संस्थाका साथीहरू, जेटिसीको तर्फबाट यहाँहरूको निमन्त्रणालाई स्वीकार गरेर हामी आएका छौं र हाम्रो जेटिसी संयुक्त ट्रेड युनियन समन्वय केन्द्रको धारणा र अहिलेसम्म भएका विस्तृत कुराहरूलाई हामीले लिपिबद्ध पनि ल्याएका छौं र सबै धेरै भएको हुनाले लिपिबद्धसँग जान्न नसके पनि केही समराइज म गर्नेछु। त्यसपछि डकुमेन्ट पनि छ र म नेपालीमै प्रस्तुत गर्ने भएकोले हाम्रो जेटिसीको सिओ साहब आउनुभएको छ, त यहाँलाई इङ्ग्लिसबाट पनि ट्रान्सलेट गरेर सुनाउनु नै हुनेछ भन्दै म अगाडि बढ्न चाहन्छु। संयुक्त ट्रेड युनियन समन्वय केन्द्र जेटिसीसी हामीले धेरै समयदेखि नेपालको श्रम आन्दोलन 2003 सालदेखि सुरु हुँदै धेरै कठिन र धेरै दुःखको बावजुद हामी क्रियाशील रहँदै आयौं। हर आन्दोलनमा, नेपालका ठुल्ठुला आन्दोलनहरूमा ट्रेड युनियनको त्यति नै भूमिका छ, जसकारणले आजको ट्रेड युनियन जेटिसीसी यहाँसम्म आउने क्रममा धेरै सङ्घर्ष र मेहनतका साथ हामीहरू आएका छौं। विगत 62-63 को जनआन्दोलन पनि नेपालको ट्रेड युनियन आन्दोलनले ठूलो महत्त्वपूर्ण भूमिका खेलेको थियो। त्यस्तै हामीले 2064 सालमा ट्रेड युनियनलाई एकीकृत गरेर एउटा आवाज बुलन्द गर्नका लागि हामीले जेटिसीको स्थापना गर्यौं, जसकारण आजसम्म हामी यो जेटिसिसीलाई यहाँसम्म ल्याउने क्रममा निरन्तर अगाडि बढेका छौँ। त्यतिखेर हामीले 7 वटा ट्रेड युनियनको एउटा साझा संस्था विविधतामा एकता भनेर हामी अगाडि बढ्यौँ। जम्मा 18 लाख श्रमिकहरूको त्यहाँ समावेश भएको थियो। त्यसै गरी हामी अगाडि बढ्ने क्रममा हामीले अहिले जेटिसिसीमा 10 वटा ट्रेड युनियन महासङ्घको समायोजन छ। विचार भिन्नता भए पनि हामी ट्रेड युनियनको र श्रम आन्दोलनमा जेटिसिसीको मातहतमा रहेर हामी एउटै स्वर र एउटै विचार र श्रमिकका मुद्दा देश राष्ट्रले दिएको संविधानभित्र रहेर हामीले पाउने अधिकारका कुराहरूलाई एकल ट्रेड युनियनको अवधारणाका साथ हामी अगाडि बढ्यौँ। जसकारणले गर्दाखेरि हामी अहिलेसम्म अगाडि बढ्न सफल भएका छौँ। स्थानीय स्तर, प्रदेश स्तर र केन्द्रीय स्तरमा हामी जेटिसिसीले अत्यन्त श्रमिकको बारेमा र नेपालको संविधानभित्र रहेर पाउने अधिकार र कुनै अधिकारमाथि वञ्चित हुन लागेका कुराहरूलाई खबरदारी गर्ने क्रममा जेटिसिसी तल्लीन छ र अहिलेसम्म निरन्तर जेटिसिसी अगाडि बढेको छ। र सोसल सेक्युरिटीको कुरामा हामी र कोभिडको बारेमा हामीलाई ठुलो असर परेकै हो। कोभिडले हामीलाई अत्यन्त ठुलो असर पुर्यायो। त्यतिखेरको समयमा सरकार, रोजगारदाता र श्रमिकसित भएको समझदारी र सहकार्य पनि कार्यान्वयन हुन सकेन। ती कुराले हामी जेटिसिसीमा रहेका श्रमिकका नेताहरू र श्रमजीवी वर्गलाई परेको असरमा हामी अत्यन्त चिन्तित रह्यौँ र निरन्तर हामी सङ्घर्षमा रहिरह्यौँ। र यो क्रमले सोसल सेक्युरिटीलाई र कोभिडको कारणले हामीलाई परेको असर अत्यन्त ठुलो थियो। तर पनि त्यसलाई हामीले क्रमशः अगाडि बढाइ नै रह्यौँ। र हामीसित अहिले भएका कुराहरूमा हामी असङ्गठित क्षेत्र, अनौपचारिक क्षेत्रमा भएको 80% श्रमिकहरू सोसल सेक्युरिटीबाट वञ्चित भएको छ। कानुनले हामीलाई औपचारिक र अनौपचारिक छुट्याएको छैन। तर विभिन्न कारणले हाम्रो संविधान र ऐन नबन्नुको कारणले, कार्यविधिहरू तयार हुन नसक्नुको कारणले, राजनीतिक दृष्टिकोणले कानुनहरू बन्न सफल नभएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि अनौपचारिक क्षेत्रको श्रमिकहरूलाई हामीले समेटेर सोसल सेक्युरिटीमा लान सक्ने परिस्थिति भएको छैन। तर पनि हामी निरन्तर त्यो कुराहरूमा अगाडि बढिरहेकै छौँ। र हामीहरूको न्यूनतम ज्याला सम्बन्धीको कुरामा पनि हामीहरूको त्रिपक्षीय सम्झौतामा छौँ। हामीले त्यस कुरालाई पनि निरन्तर राखेकै छ। हाम्रो सोसल सेक्युरिटीको कुरामा पनि ट्रेड युनियनको प्रतिनिधित्वहरू हाम्रो त्यहाँ कायमै छ। हामी त्यसमा निरन्तर अगाडि बढेकै छौँ। सामाजिक सौदाबाजीमा पनि ट्रेड युनियनले गर्ने र हाम्रो प्रतिनिधित्वहरूले त्यहाँ गर्ने कामहरूमा हामी अगाडि क्रियाशीलै छौँ। र समग्रमा हामीहरूको जेटिसिसीको तर्फबाट नेपालको श्रम आन्दोलनलाई, श्रमिक वर्गलाई र तिनै तहको सरकारलाई हामीले चाहिँ क्रियाशील रूपले श्रम आन्दोलनलाई अगाडि बढाउने क्रममा कुनै पनि कसरतहरू छोडेका छैनौँ। र आइएलओ सन्धिहरूलाई पनि हामीले कायम राख्दै सन्धि अवलोकन भएका सन्धिहरूको कार्यविधिभित्र रहेर हामी अगाडि बढिरहेका छौँ र बढ्ने कोसिसमा पनि छौँ। र सार्क सम्बन्धीका सम्पूर्ण श्रम आन्दोलनको मा भएका गतिविधिहरूलाई र नेपालको गतिविधिहरूलाई हामी सिक्ने र हामीसित भएका कुराहरूलाई यहाँहरूको समक्ष राख्ने मौका पाएकोमा जेटिसिसी अत्यन्त खुसी छ। सबै कुरा श्रमलाई हामीले समेटेर श्रमिकको मुद्दा र श्रम आन्दोलनलाई कसरी अगाडि बढाउन सकिन्छ, यसलाई कसरी व्यवस्थित गर्न सकिन्छ भन्ने कुरालाई साझा धारणा बनाएर अगाडि बढ्नु नै अहिलेको श्रम आन्दोलनको उचाइमा पुर्याउने बाटो हो भन्ने हामीले बुझेका छौं र यिनै कुराहरू राखेर हामीलाई परेको कोभिडको प्रभाव सोशल सेक्युरिटीको मा हामीले अहिलेसम्म गरेका योगदान र त्यतिखेरका कठिनाइहरू ता भएका कुराहरू हामीले डकुमेन्टमा राखेका छौं। यो डकुमेन्ट सहित यहाँ भएको छ भन्दै जेटिसीको तर्फबाट र समाजवादी ट्रेड युनियन महासंघ नेपाल एसटिसीको अध्यक्षको पनि तर्फबाट म नवराज दाहाल यहाँबाट बिदा हुन्छु। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Navraj, for your presentation. Next, I will invite Serena.
Okay. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. I am Deepa Dawade. I am the Executive Director of JTUCC. And on behalf of our General Secretary, I would like to summarize whatever he said. I have made the presentations, including everything what he has presented here. So you can. Okay. You can show there. Okay. Okay, as we have already shown the presentation as well, so if it is required, then I can explain the things, or what do you think? Okay, 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 thank you. So our part is that about the JTUCC efforts in the unity in diversity in Nepal and in the policy changes. As you know, that JTUCC is one of the unique platform, the umbrella organization of the all major confederation in Nepal. That is a very unique model in the world. So it may be interesting to all of you to hear about regarding the unity process, how JTUCC has been established and what JTUCC has been doing for the policy changes in Nepal, including the social protection for the workers. So JTUCC was actually, the Nepali Trade Union have a long struggle of 76 years since 1946 and played a very significant role in different political and other transformations in Nepal, including the struggle for to secure the rights of workers in Nepal. So actually this unity process was started during 2000, considering the reality that the trade union may be different with different ideology and perspective, but the major issues of the workers are same. So there are the very common issues of the workers. So for that, the unity is utmost. Unless the workers' voice is united, the voice would not be heard by anyone, and either the government or the employers. With that concept, in 2000, the JTUCC, the joint task force was formed. And after that also the joint work was initiated on common issues like the occupational health and safety, wages, and other facilities for the workers. And afterwards, during the 2006 People's Movement, all the trade unions were joined together and mobilized. That was also the major point where the trade unions were united together to fight for the major movement against the monarchy and also for the restoration of the democracy. And that way the trade union were united together, and the concept of the joint trade union platform was formulated in 2007 with the then 7 major trade unions signing the agreements and agreement to ensure the social security and social protection as a fundamental rights to the both formal and informal sectors, and likewise to guarantee the freedom of associations and ILO conventions and standards, and to also ensure the minimum fair wage to all the workers. So these are the things which was agreed by all 7 trade unions at that time, and during that JTUCC was established in 2007, and 2007, and since then the JTUCC is working for the raising the major labor issues and uniting all the trade union confederations, and now we have a 10 major trade union confederation affiliated with the JTUCC. And the major achievement we have been made during this, yes, it has been decade long since we have been established JTUCC, and the major achievements are that after long struggle, new constitution was adopted with the guarantee of the workers' rights as the fundamental right. Similarly, the new Social Security Act and the Labor Act was adopted, and the Labor Act normally has the provisions for equal rights to all the formal and informal sector. It covers all the formal and informal sectors, the labor law, new labor law. And likewise, the provisions of the labor law has the provisions of the formation of the tripartite social dialogue mechanisms. That was also the major demand of JTUCC since the beginning, because unless we have a tripartite social dialogues, the labor issues cannot be addressed. So that has been secured, and the JTUCC 5 members, including compulsory 2 members, are representative in the Central Labor Advisory Council. That is the tripartite national social dialogue mechanism in Nepal. And likewise, that the integrated social security scheme was enforced on November 18, which covered the medical and health scheme, maternity protection schemes, accidental and disability schemes, old age protection schemes, dependent family protection scheme. So that was also the big achievement for us, the Social Security Act adaptations, and as well as the Social Security Scheme enforcement in 2018. And also to operate the Social Security Fund, our tripartite steering committee board was formed, and where JTUCC 3 members, including the 1 women member, is also representing in the SSF board. Likewise, for the fixation of the minimum wage, to secure the minimum wage, there was the tripartite mechanism was established. That is the minimum wage fixation committee, where the JTUCC is represented, 3 members is representing, and with the 1 women representations. Likewise, not only in the national level, but at the province level also, we have been lobbying and advocacy for the tripartite and bipartite mechanisms, and we have been successful to form the Provincial Labor Advisory Council in Province 1, Gandaki Province and Lumbini Province, which deals regarding the labor and employment issues. So these are the major achievements during the last decade, and regarding the JTUCC effort in the COVID crisis. We know that the COVID crisis has been badly hitting the whole world, and of course the Nepal is not an exceptional cases. So there has been a very adverse effect in the both formal and informal sector. However, the informal sector is more hit, because the 80% of total employment with majority women workers is involved in the informal sectors. And you know that the informal sector is, though our law said that the both formal and informal sector is included in is covered by the labor law, but unfortunately in practical the informal sector still are not able to enjoy the labor rights or the labor law and the social protections. From the beginning, during the 2019 and the lockdown began in the 2020 since April, and from beginning JTUCC strongly lobby and drawn attention of the government, employers and relevant stakeholders to take the strong measures to prevent the spread of COVID and to provide the necessary protection measures to and the necessary facilities to the workers. And in initiation of JTUCC, bipartite and tripartite meetings were held, and JTUCC recommended for the immediate, mid-term and long-term plan for the effective response to secure the health and safety, employment and income, and also the social protection of the workers. Likewise, JTUCC also donated the 1 million to the Coronavirus Control and Treatment Fund. Likewise, JTUCC and its all affiliates were active in distribution of relief packages, PPEs, to the most and needy workers. And with the initiation and the pressure of the JTUCC and the affiliate union, the government as well as has adopted some measures and policy measures to fight against the COVID pandemic, and also for the protections measures. And also we have been successful to make the bipartite agreement with the employer organizations to secure the jobs and incomes of the workers. However, in reality, these studies, policies, and strategies as well as agreement were not effectively implemented because of the various challenges in the country. We can explain the challenges, like that the country's political, social, and economic conditions, which has direct effect in the labor market. And also there is the unstable government and mechanisms in the Nepal, and the frequent changes of the dignitaries also. So these policies, the adopted policies and plan has not been effectively implemented. And also that Nepal has entered into the new federal structure, and the effective functioning of the central, province, and the local level, and the coordination between these three levels of the government is also the problem, also the challenging in the Nepal. And likewise, because of this and also the added challenges of the COVID-19 and the social protection to the workers is also the challenges. Okay. Okay, so these are the major issues. However, in initiation of the JTUCC, we have tried to secure the workers' rights as well as the social protection, especially advocating for the social protection to the workers and to ensure the fundamental rights along with the social protection to the workers. And the major problem is that the informal economy and the informal workers who are not registered anywhere. Unless they are registered, it is very difficult to enroll them in the social security. So the JTUCC has been mostly focusing to the registration of the both formal and especially the informal workers, so that the social security scheme can be introduced to the informal sector as well. So thank you so much. And once again, I would like to thank you, the GLU SCI alumni and the ILO representative and everyone here for this important conference and inviting the JTUCC and providing the opportunity to share our experience. Thank you.
Thank you for the translation. And these win and small changes give all of us hope to agitate and organize. I invite Serena from Indonesia to present next.
Okay, thank you. Can you open the slide? So I would like to present Indonesian case in providing social protection in times of COVID-19 pandemic. And yeah, first of all, we know that we didn't know nothing about COVID in the beginning. We didn't have the vaccine, and the main way to prevent the transmission was physical or social distancing. And so the Indonesian government, after being ignorant for several months, actually they already know about COVID in the late of. We heard about COVID in the late of 2019, but some governments, of course, are being ignorant, including the Indonesian government. So it was started by the initiatives of local government, especially in the big cities like the capital city of Jakarta, to introduce kind of restrictions. And it was a law in April in April 2020, but the government didn't allow to have a full lockdown or quarantine, because in our medical quarantine act, that if the government implement a fully lockdown, so all of the living costs, all of the basic needs should be provided by the government. So what they chose at the time was the large scale restriction. And so actually it was a minimal restriction that was taken by a local government with the Internal Affairs Minister approval. And yeah, and they changed also, and then they changed the word to be implemented into national policy that restricted people mobility in Java and Bali in January 2021. And yeah, you can see that it takes months to have a, yeah, you can see that we start, no, not yet, the slide, please. So it takes months to have a national policy of restriction, and of course, what happened before the disruption in food supply chain, or also job losses, although it was a minimal restriction, but because Indonesia is a part of a global supply chain, and when the economy starts to slowing down, and also it impact to Indonesian economy. And then the government initiate social safety net and labor market programs as social protection. Next. Okay, this is so in April we start our first social restriction. It was a minimal, and the case was exceed 1,000 cases at the time, and it needs to exceed 500,000 cases in order to have a national policy to restrict the mobility in Java Island and Bali. And next, so although yeah, it was a minimal restriction, but the number of workers affected by restriction only in May 2020, when we didn't yet have a Delta variant at the moment, it was already almost 2 million workers. Next. So yeah, what the social restrictions that the government introduced, it basically just extended the social protection that already exists before, like cash transfer. The cash transfers was already exists, and which so-called the Family Hope program, when where the government provide like around like $40 US per month for 3 months, and then it was extended to cover also the workers as wage subsidy, and also cash transfer for non-Greater Jakarta citizen and the villagers. And the second was basic food assistance. Also, it was an extension of a previous program. It was extended by providing some package of foods for people. And electricity subsidy also, it was an extension of the program before, but the government extended the amount of recipients of the subsidy. And the cash assistance for micro enterprises also was an extension. And I think what is the new program was a pre-employment card, which is actually a kind of weird. So at a time when people lost their jobs and the government tried to stimulate economy by providing cash transfer and also some vouchers to access training, even though there is not so much jobs. And yeah, and I think the more strategic program was boosting investment with the omnibus law, or we call it now as a job creation law. I will talk about it more later, next. So job creation law and its impact on workers. We really know that jobs is a very hegemonic word for the people and also the workers. So in the government side, they announced that if we have more investment, of course we will have more jobs, which is not true. And the second, the government also defend job creation law as the way to extend social protection, because in this new law we will have an unemployment benefits, but it was very limited. I don't have time to talk much to detail, but it's not like unemployment benefits that you have heard in another country. It was very limited program. And also the compensation for contract workers after the contract ends, and they will get some compensation. And the reality, so this is the reality, labor absorption per investment is declining from time to time. So like 10 years ago, 1 trillion rupiah could make around 4,000 jobs, but now it's declining. 1 trillion rupiah is only equal with 1,000 jobs. So you can see that creating jobs, it doesn't always come from investment, because it also depends what kind the investment that the government attract. And what kind of the sectors. Normally it's not a manufacturing sector, but usually services or exploitation in raw, in mineral, like, or plantation, like mining and so on. And yeah, and actually what job creation law provides is expansion of non-standard employment that already exists in the law, there is no limitation on outsourcing workers. Now we have more, we can implement outsource in all of a kind of jobs, and also wages declining because the removal of sectoral wages. So in the past we had we know automotive sector is a competitive sector that allow the workers to get more salary, but now it has been removed from the law, and also the compensation package is reduced, and means in certain degree compensation package can protect the workers from dismissal, but now it has been reduced. And so what else? What I want to emphasize in my presentation also, how at the time the people they didn't only rely on government program, but also they help each other. If they provide foods for their neighbors, and it was spontaneous and it was massive. So I think it would be interesting if we have how much actually government provide as a social protection, and how much people themselves help each other, how much the coverage actually. And also I think farming and agriculture became more important at the time, and the statistics show that the job absorption in agriculture was increasing, and because many people come back to village, because village actually provide even though it's minimal, and even though many many villagers are poor, but at least they have food around them as a subsistence. And yeah, and I also can see that the creativity in organizing and protesting by practicing health protocol and campaigning on social media. We have kind of much experience about this. So this is our demonstration. We try to surround a factory, but we practical, physical, and social distancing. But still, the police summon us and questioning our leaders. And next. And so we went to social media a lot, and I will remember there is a worker that had a brilliant idea. So he said that, I know how to make us trending on Twitter. So if we have 5,000 and we post same hashtag at the same time, we can be trending. And it was true, because and they can be trending on Twitter like more than 10 times. And this is the picture when they commit that we should use our smartphone as a tool of resistance. And next, so my conclusion is it's very important to have a social protection, and it should be expand and in terms of expenditure and also coverage. But we will see, because many social protection during the COVID was most covered by foreign debt. So we now have a huge foreign debt, and usually if we want to pay the installment, usually the government instead of reducing unnecessary budget like military budget, usually they go to cut social subsidy. And I can see also seeking social protection in the labor market, and this is, we should criticize about it, because I can see that the government always try to find a new solution in the market, instead of seeing what actually people need, and what kind of job we really need, what kind of development that we can do actually. And so, yeah, my conclusion is job creation law will only attract low quality of investments and declining living standards and environment quality, and also it's just an expanding the regulated labor market to be more and more. And I think also the last, foreign sovereignty is crucial, because in my country, we have it's like I think almost country, including the advanced country like United States or Japan or European countries, also have this phenomenon. They call it aging farmers. But in order to balance the decline of the farmers, they have technology. But we are very poor countries. Most of us in my country case, we don't have it. So what we do, we rely more on food imports and food miles, which is we really give our foreign sovereignty to outside of the country. And in the times of crisis like COVID, it would be really, really a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. I will invite next Ramon to present.
Okay, good afternoon once again. I'm here to present briefly about the situation or government programs and trade union initiatives as regards to social protection in the Philippines. As you may know, that the Philippines has been set up a social protection program for many decades already. But of course, that we have been experienced, as what the COVID has been tells us, it unmasks the reality that there is still a huge gap and challenges as far as implementation of social protection programs in the Philippines that needs to be strengthened and complemented by programs by other sectors like the trade unions as well. There are three goals of social protection that we are looking at. Of course, opportunity, resilience, and equity that provides or mitigates risk, and of course avoid the consequences or implications of crises like the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are different levels of social protection that even the trade unions has been part of implementing or looking or addressing these levels of social protection, because trade unions as part of the tripartite body that develop and formulate policy at the policy level, and of course in the implementation program, and as well as delivery as far as engagement in the local government units are concerned. But of course we are being surprised. Of course during the surge of COVID-19 pandemic, as I have mentioned, there are many issues that peoples and workers in particular experience as far as, of course, absence of health and death insurance, especially for those who are being affected or infected by COVID, especially those who are not being covered by contributory scheme, like those who are in the non-regular workers, and of course the issue of non-coverage of informal sector. And during the time of COVID as well, when they are slowly reintroducing the economy, there was, even though that there are many workers who are willing to go back to work, but there are unavailable transportation for workers going to their workplaces. And of course, there are many restrictions and regulations, but of course, especially on the issue of occupational safety and health, and regulations on mandatory cleaning or disinfection of workplaces, but it has not been monitored and effectively regulated by the labor inspector during the time of COVID-19. And especially when there are sick leaves and other leaves are being used, workers does not have to provide any income guarantee to support their loss of income while they are in quarantine. So there's an absence of quarantine pay. And as far as the delivery of cash subsidy or income transfer, you can see also the challenges of the delayed release of cash subsidy to affected workers, or others are not being covered, especially those who are in the medium and large enterprises. And there are also issues as far as the formulation of regulations with the interagency task force that regulates some restrictions on the lockdowns, as there are no involvement of key social partners like the trade unions in those restrictions. And of course, workers are mainly affected by temporary suspension of work and permanent closure of business operations during the time of COVID-19. So you can see in that figure that heavily affected are those who are in the services, particularly those who are in the call center and BPO. But of course, there are some measures that prevents them from losing their livelihood, because government are imposing some flexible work arrangement. Those workers are provided work from home. But of course, in the reintroduction of economy, it tends to go back from work from home, going back to the office. And as far as you can also see during that time that there was a relaxation of quarantine, as many workers wish to go back to work, but of course there's an availability of transportation. And of course the impact will be on the productivity, and of course to the loss of income, especially for those who are in the transportation sectors. So there are different measures that complements the existing social protection program, the government, particularly on enacting a law. They called as Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, which provides mobilization of resources and funds to provide for those who are being affected, especially for those who are in the special risk, including the payment of hazard pay, especially for the frontliners like the nurses and healthcare workers, and it's still a problem today. There was this emergency subsidy for low-income household. It prioritized workers in the informal economy, but of course, it's not, even though it was being allocated, but it's not sufficient enough, and it was really targeted for those who are in the list of the poor piece, or those who are in the list of vulnerable workers in the sector. And there are other social protection in the Philippines, like I have mentioned. You have the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipina, Poor Piece, the providing of cash grant, program benefits, etc., etc. But that was before. I mentioned earlier that was the existing social protection programs even before the COVID-19 pandemic. But of course, that program also has a challenge and problems in terms of implementation. And as far as providing support for businesses, especially for those who are entrepreneurs, the Department of Trade and Industry also provided as kind of a program for providing livelihood training entrepreneurial program to support those who are in the micro and small business enterprises. And the Department of Transportation, to respond to the challenge of unavailability of transportation service, the government also provided a free bus rides, but it was being seen as a temporary measures. But still, it is running, but there's still a problem in terms of payment, direct payment of those to the contractors and of those transportation providers. And as I have mentioned, the Department of Labor and Employment has a program for those who are being affected in terms of lay-off workers as far as the COVID-19 adjustment measures program. Go back again, please, Burns. No, other back. Yes, and as far as the addressing the concerns of the informal sector, the government also has this community-based package of assistance that provide emergency employment, like those who are affected by lockdowns. They do not have any other options but to get something from the government to survive and, of course, to respond to the hunger and falling into poverty trap. Next, please. And there is also this provision for small business wage subsidy for those who are being qualified in the small and medium enterprises. The government provides some kind of a subsidy to the employers to provide a direct support to the employers who are being affected by COVID-19. So you can see that it is not much because it only covers around 6 to 7 workers that been affected by the hundreds of thousands, so it's not that much. But of course, there are also other initiatives, especially from the trade unions. You have the community pantry that provides food for those who are in need. And there are also some initiatives from the trade unions, like provisions of face masks and other hygienic kits and other direct support, like giving rice or food. And the unions are also being, go back please again, sorry. Yeah, you can see that the unions are in work, especially during the pandemic. The trade unions campaign for the passage of a provision of paid pandemic leave. Because as I have mentioned earlier, that those who are being put into quarantine does not have any income of call, but the unions are pushing for some kind of a special paid leave, especially during the period of quarantine. And one of the most significant initiative of the union was they pushed to lobby for the inclusion of COVID-19 as an occupational safety and health, occupational disease. Therefore, it has to be compensated. So whenever there's a worker that has been inflicted with COVID, he can apply to the Employers' Compensation Commission for them to give some kind of assistance for the minimum amount. And of course, in the broad trade union movement, there's a push for a recovery program that includes provision of universal social income guarantee, and of course, other measures that protect for those who are in disadvantaged sector. And yeah, there's other initiatives like provision of hotlines when there is a emergency call from the workers. Some affiliates of industry are accepting and directing them to the concerned agency to provide some assistance. There is this campaign for also for mass testing during the time of pandemic because you cannot workers does not have any income at all, and they being also being provide does not have any provision to provide for a testing. So we are campaigning to provide for a mass testing for all workers who are being affected by the COVID-19. In conclusion, of course, social protection measures plays a very prominent role in addressing social and economic shocks, especially during the crisis and the coming crisis to come in the future. And as I have mentioned, that social protection program in the Philippines has been set up, but it has not it unmasked the reality that it still has a challenge that need to strengthen, and of course it also seen that some problems in implementation, like mishandling of funds, and of course the corrupted public resources has been viewed as a very problematic issue. And therefore, there is a need for the social protection system to be strengthened, to needed for recovery, not only for the realization of human rights, but social security rights as well. And of course, the role of trade unions in this development and is very crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahman. Now we have reached to final presentation for the day. I invite Mr. Mahindra to present.
Thank you, Brother Kumar. First of all, I would like to warm welcome friends of GLU to the Nepal. Hope, yes, you will have stay here happily, I think, for 5 days. Please, I want to present PowerPoint. And actually, Brother Andre and the General Secretary of the GTC have already present, but Andre has overall in the Asia Pacific situation. He know everything about the social security, about the Nepal. You know, he is one of the designers. And situation of the Nepal has already represented by General Secretary of the GTCC. So I would like to little bit different. My presentation is 2-3 sides. One is the development of the social security in Nepal. How you can see before the 8 and 9 decade before, it has exist one act which is called the Army Provident Fund 1934. After that, the non-contributory Provident Fund for the government employee. Consciously, you can see one in the 1962, the Employee Provident Fund. This is for the government, public sectors, and the private sectors enterprises. This is a little bit popular and little bit established social security institution. Now I am talking about the because after that you can see one arrow. Yeah, here started the people movements. Before that is the single party and the king king rules was there. Yes, King Vajradeval. There was no trade union or anything that time. So what happened when trade union come here? You can see, yes. And after that, in 99, we got the democratic constitution. Characteristics of the constitution and multi-party system. So. And then after the 1991 and 92, we got the law, labor law and the trade union law. After that, our process, trade union movement has started legally and officially. Yes, yeah, that time. And त्यहाँबाट राम्रो देखिँदैन क्या मैले ठिक अनि मेरो ल्यापटप छ त केही छैन अब म हेरिरहेको छैन कि चस्माले नबिग्रियो कि सानो भयो मेरो Okay, I will try to manage. Then 19, okay, I have one here. I have, but my slide is the overlapping, no, so it is very difficult to see in the paper. In 98, yeah, NTC has started campaigning for social security for all. This is the place. I would like to call the name of the brother Lakshman Basnet. He's a main pioneer of, just started. And after that, that issue, in the common issue that time, all the federation on that issue, and that was the common issue anywhere. And you can see here, before there, 76 social assistants are in Nepal, distributing, and different government agencies are running this. You can see, and you can see different agencies are distribution and operation that assistance. Okay, go ahead. And you can see little bit, this is this started from the old assistant from the old age, from the 100 rupees 100. Now it is 104 within the 12 years, 104 billion budget are going there. We have no problem. But like our country, you can see, question is raising, how can afford, because this is political agenda now, This is, we'll talk later about it. Go ahead. Next. Okay. Please. Still, we have some developments still. Now started another movement, when King coup the systems and dismissed the parliament, then democratic movement has again started in Nepal, and we and at that time announced the Republic of the Nepal. And I'm not going to the politically, because this is the very related with the social security development, because we started from the 1934 and then we got the thanks ILO, we 10 and 12 years we continuously talk with the government, employer, and facilitator what's ILO. Still they are doing something, but for that law they have played a very vital role. Then we got the law, new labor law. in that law, employer demand flexibility, and our demand was social security. So compromise, little bit flexibility and social security, and then started the contribution contribution-based social security acts. Started from there. And then 2008, 9 on social security scheme operation started from the 9 contingency of the ILO Convention 102. 8, we didn't mention the unemployment benefit there. Still, there is not unemployment benefit. And 4, then you can see this is the new law, Labor Act and Social Security Act and scheme. No, yes, just say. Andre, no better, he describes early. Yeah, here is the problem, you know. Yeah, here, only 2 minutes? Oh, I have just started because I'm last, you know. So last, I know in the last, when we are, in the last, no problem. I will try to finish in 2 minutes. If any problem, please add more 2-3 minutes. Yeah. Here is some lot of gaps, you know. I have already mentioned about the EPF, Employment Provident Fund. People has a mindset there, and paradigm are shifted to contribution. So very difficult because you can see here the 3/4 institution are there. Citizen investment fund in the higher level because this is not actually social security. Not social security institution, but higher level people can save the money there. Yes, and it is very difficult to aware even in the political level, even in the formal sector, even in the trade unions also, very difficult situation there are. So little bit there is a problem. A lot of others because this is a new. Okay, now you can see, start the situation of the Nepal in the very brief. Here there is one map, China and India. In the India border is the free, visa, no anything, you know everybody, you know about it, and north side is China. And people, try to come back their home, and the people stuck in the border. Nothing was there, nothing provision, no food, no shelter, anything. Was there. Next year, no year. And if we are talking about here, I am talking about the migration, migrant people, internally and externally migrant people. You can see no ability to access their places of the work in the country of destination, and the same situation in the country of the origin. But excuse me, but this is the very important. In the country, yes, migrant workers are contributing about 25, sometimes 23, 28, 25% GDP per year. This country, no any donor donate this country this much amount of the money. But situation of the migrant worker was the very, very worse. So, go ahead. Migrant workers in India, a little bit, you know, about 6,000 approximately. Situation was same in no situation. Mostly the workers are the informal and seasonal workers. No. Any obligation of the employer about the foods, cares, and anything. You go too fast because your time. Because internal same situation. Yeah, you stocks on the border. All that workers, migrants. Same situation. Worse situation is in the internal migration also here in Nepal. You know, in same situation in India also. Yeah, no travels, not anything, no work, no anything. And they decided, we say in Nepali, rog bhok. Yeah, you have two options. You would like to die or from COVID or without meal. Yeah, that was the situation, and people walk and hundreds miles. And government are saying stop, and they are moving that situation. And that is situation we have to do some work in the bus stops and distribute the meals and send the people by the bus. But situation was very tough at that time. You can see, yeah, another situation. The migrant in the 7 country has almost 400,000 people are almost they want to return in the country because they have no work, they have expired the visa situation. That was the situation. But everything, all the flight was no flight, no anything. That was situation. So, as a trade union, what can I do? That was the very tough situation. What can we do? You came here, yes. Then we lobby with the governments, and we talk with the social partners, with the technicians, and we internally we ask the government to provide the health measures for the first of all the health workers, because that was very essential. Increase the insurance amount of the health workers, and provide the package to daily workers. Daily workers. Unfortunately, you can imagine. More than 84 point something percent is informal workers in the Nepal. I think didn't get the cash transfer that people, because they have no registration, no anything. Without cash transfer there, and local body are distributing the food and anything. And you know what's the situation within a country? Local body, yes, no, these are not our people, because internal migration had that type of the situation, tough situation. Okay, and actually, we meeting with the JTCC already so many times, and the other trade unions, and monitoring the relief activities, and a meeting with the social partners, CNI, FNCS, and even in the recruiting agency also, because they are monitoring the counterpart of the in the foreign country. So that was the situation. And we talk with the private representative of the private association, and they demand a lot. Yes, they demand. I just said, don't cut the jobs and give the salary, and they say, no, we need soft loan, tax relief, stimulation, and so many things. They demand. Yes, and you say to government, yeah, provide us stimulation. That of the situation, and we mobilized our structure in affiliates and our the province districts. They lobbying with the local government, local government to provide the food and something. That was the and counseling. That was a very tough situation because our member. What can we do for our member? People are very much afraid the situation. I'm talking about because at that time main newspaper yes, right in the headlines. Why is it trade union? Yeah, first time newspaper write where is the trade union? That was the situation. As possible as who do. Okay, good. Yeah, the situation. Yeah, brother. Now what can I do? Situation is in the running situation. The COVID, because due to the COVID, fracture everything, the law, everything, and the situation is a little bit under current, very, very problematic. Now what can we do? Please. We have to discuss now what can I do. Why, I just explained about the development of the social security in Nepal. Only 70% people are coverage, at least one social security only. Let's see. The situation in the 8 and 9 decades, only 17% people are getting social security, at least only one. Yeah, that was the situation. Then what I'm going to do? Because we are and government and the employer are they are not very much believing in the social security. Now I think all world and everywhere they are little bit aware. May after the COVID situation, maybe they will be normal. So we have to fight for take this issue, and we have to continuous campaigning about it. ITC has a big role for this. We have also big role because if we will go continuously, then only we can get coverage, because our government has just committed for the within the 2030 80% the workers will be coverage. They have just stopped because I don't know, I didn't believe. And we have a lot of instrument. We have just please. We have a lot of instruments. We have the actual constitution. We have STD because government has a big commitment for the STG, and STG in the STG when the 4 7 goals and 7 targets, 7 goals and more targets are the very much related with the social security. So we can work with in the STG also and other instruments. Then we can get the social security. We can achieve the social security in the country. Now, role of the protection in the responding crisis social protection measures are necessary part of the adequate crisis response there. Ensure the people can effectively access the health care, support jobs and income security for those affected by the crisis, and contribute to the preventing poverty, unemployment, and informality, foster economic and social stability and peace, please, still crises are running. We can see so many crises are around us. Climate change is the, yeah, we know climate change in Nepal. Nepal is very vulnerable yeah, from climate change situation, technology, and so many new crises are coming. So we, in the crisis time, we try to do something. So before the crisis, we have to do a lot. Then only we can face the crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahendra.
Too much?
Yeah, no, you completed it before time. At least we have couple of minutes. So I will thank everyone. I would like to share few things during COVID which I've even observed from in India. Actually, just before first lockdown, I was traveling for a meeting and I reached there and lockdown was announced. I was supposed to be there for 3 days and I was stuck there for 4 months. And at least I had few friends who were living there and we had contact. I lived in their house. But when we were traveling and we met people, especially daily wage laborer, they suffered a lot. And small taxi drivers, because they took loan to pay for, to survive and they can't pay the loan now. And small eateries, they don't have any business. And the way it was announced, everyone, people who, at least I had some contacts and I got to stay 4 months without any hassle, but people were suffering. And at least I saw help came from where we never realized. People came together, villagers came together, giving food to taxi drivers, truck drivers, helping each other. But later on, government also in India, like they gave grains, they gave direct cash transfer and medicines, but it came little late. But one positive thing was that agriculture sector was the only which showed positive growth in terms of agriculture tool, in terms of fertilizers, and in terms of seeds. Demand was like high. And we always said the agriculture is one sector we need to modernize more, change more, we need to get. But that is the only sector where, as per the reports and research, which shown positive growth during the COVID. And now floor is open for the questions. Anyone has any comment, any question? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask the question because we have an expert in social protection here, social security. I have like twin questions, and this can also be addressed by the members of the rest of the panel. Yeah, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been much talk about, a renewed talk about universal basic income. And I would like to know, what do you think? Is this a better measure to, prepare countries and people for the next, pandemic or even economic crisis? And then the twin question of that is, has there been any move in any country in Asia, and also including the countries of our panelists here, to seriously consider and look back at, what would be a model of universal basic income that may work? Because it can't be just universal basic income alone. It has to be complemented by other social policies. So, yeah, that's my question. Thank you. Should we collect, or are there any other questions?
My question from Raman, that you discussed the emergency employment in pandemic crisis. So that you mentioned that the labor department hired displaced person for workers. So what type of activities or what type of works you are getting from the displaced workers? Because I am also running a project of ILO in Pakistan, that we have flood in Sindh in Balochistan. So we also hired people for cash for work program. So what type of work you are doing at the time, because all industries was closed, shop were closed, like this. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, and thank you for the interesting presentations. Again, a question to you, Andre. You mentioned that there's been a realization of the importance of having these solid social protection programs already in place. Has the ILO been called by any country, of course your expertise is in Asia, but elsewhere, to actually work in this direction? And if you can tell us what kind of countries are those that are asking for this one? What's the particular political configuration of forces in the countries that are kind of thinking in this direction? Because it seems that lots of realizations came with the COVID crisis, but they kind of got lost on the way. So I'm just interested to know whether there is still that, the steam is still on this part. Thank you.
So thank you so much for the questions. I'll start with the question about the universal basic income. In principle, the UBI is indeed a fantastic idea, and I think the principle of everybody having a minimum level of income, having a minimum level of income security, is something that is very much aligned with the principles of the ILO, and particularly with ILO recommendation 202 on the social protection floors. In practice, the UBI has been a bit more difficult concept to be put in practice, and usually it comes with it's a two-edged sword, where you have in one side being used as an instrument to say, okay, let's use the UBI and replace everything else in Social Security, which comes with a lot of issues around, first, equity, efficiency, capacity for implementation, and etc. And also comes with the issues of adequacy, ensuring that those that can contribute, and those that cannot are supported, but also that those that are contributing more can access something that is more related to their income level, similar to the contributory systems. So there is, and perhaps the most pressing questions that come usually with the UBI is, how can we afford it? We see some cases we see the clear case of the United States that implemented a sort of UBI during the pandemic, which was in many terms quite generous. It was amounted to about $4,000 per capita in the country, which for many countries is some years of the per capita GDP, but for the US is not necessarily a fantastic amount that is going to solve all the problems of all the families. And they're left now with a bill to pay for it. And they're wondering, was it the best way to use the resources? Is it the most sustainable way to use the resources? And there's still quite a bit of debate. The experiences that we know that work very well on the UBI was usually in small scale and in very wealthy countries. And in terms of, is there any serious attempts in the region? By government, not that we are aware of. It's still very much a concept being discussed in the Western world and donor-backed. We know that there are some experiences in the region, there are some experiences in Africa running with donor support, and I know there's going to be a pilot, a very small pilot here in Nepal in next year, but which begs the question, is it sustainable? Can the government of Nepal back it up? And if the answer is no from the start, what are we actually learning from a pilot that we know it's not going to go forward? So there is some risks on trying to think about the UBI today as a practical tool for expanding social protection, while there are so many other tools, so many other programs and schemes, and we have many countries within the region, including Nepal, making a lot of effort using different types of tools and schemes to extend coverage. In the, as Brother Narendra was mentioning, the long road that Nepal has in social security, the last 5 years, the speed of progress in coverage has been quite fantastic. And this is by a combination of contributory schemes, health insurance, child grants, expanding social old age pensions, and not just one magical tool that fixes it all. And this is really perhaps as a short and medium term, the best way to move to expand social security for all, while the UBI indeed is a fantastic concept that hopefully we will reach the level for everybody to be able to have that, but it's probably not the only tool necessary to suffice to guarantee income security for all. And just very briefly on the discussions around the ILO support following the pandemic. Yes, there are many countries that we are engaging with, including as I'm here, Nepal, supporting the government of Nepal, expanding the social security, the contributory schemes, but also the broader analysis of the sector. But not to talk just about Nepal, I know about clear experiences of the region. For instance, in Indonesia, the reform of the unemployment scheme into a full-fledged unemployment insurance scheme has been going for a while now with the ILO support. I know last week we had a mission there to discuss with the Minister of Finance on how to reform the scheme and implement the unemployment insurance in large scale in Indonesia, which is a reflection upon how that could have been done, how the gaps identified during the pandemic can be put forward. Or looking at Thailand, the exercises around how to maintain the access to the unemployment benefits that were also extended to the informal sector. In Cambodia, how can we formalize and bring the workers from the informal sector into formal employment so they can access social security. And in many countries in the region, how we can make sure that the platform workers that are often caught in between a regulatory limbo between are they an employee, are they self-employed, are they an individual entrepreneur, and helping solve this legal maze and supporting countries on finding solutions on this. I can give a bit more examples later, but I think for brevity of time, I'll leave it here and happy to discuss more afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother, for that question. Actually, the employment assistance program provided for those who are being temporarily displaced or laid off was being implemented actually at the local government level. Although it is a part of the National Employment Recovery Strategy, wherein there is agencies that provide support to different local government agency, but the employment category was in two different forms, wherein there is a employment assistance for those who are in the informal sector. For those who are in informal sector, they're just being given a menial jobs like cleaning the streets and other things that the local government units to set for them. While in the informal sector, there are variety of employment assistance, like being supported directly with the temporary cash assistance while they are in the temporary employment. Like, for example, we have here in one of our sector in the garment industry that they are being employed in repurposing the garment production by producing face masks. They have the project for Mask for All. It was being supported by the government agency for the capital, and of course give it the market opportunity to market their product. That's one example. And the others are pertaining to training those who are displaced already and they cannot go back again to the same sector that they have. They have been training or retraining or skilling to look for another employment opportunity. Because the problem in providing for those temporary employment assistance program because it was being targeted, meaning that the one who accept those who are being included in the list of was being targeted by the local officials, you know, and if that's happened, it was being captured by those politicians, and it seems like it looks like a political patronage. They choose who among those who are in the future to get their votes for them. So it's not really an inclusive employment program. That I think that's one of the challenges in implementing this employment assistance program. And considering that it was being implemented prior to the new administration, it has to be sustained while there are still many workers or employees that are still under this temporary suspension due to not really normal business operation of those enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and Ramon. Any more questions? Christy. I think Christy has a question.
My input is actually less of a question and more of a comment, perhaps something we can all think about in the context of this panel and the implications for how we move forward. The question of whether governments can pay for it is something that I think we must examine a lot more closely, because social protection and funding social protection is inextricable from fiscal policy or fiscal spending of governments. And I agree with Sarina very much that whenever governments claim that they do not have fiscal space for greater government spending, it usually means that they've already set the priorities for what their governments want to spend on. So for example, in the Philippines, we have two major spending priorities that take away money from social protection. That includes spending on intelligence funds, security forces that expand militarization in the country, that results in repression of labor organizers and other activists. The second is the automatic appropriations law, which already allots a huge part of the government budget into debt servicing. So by earmarking those specific budget items, we're already taking away money from social protection and into these priorities of the government for its perpetuation of the interests that it tries to protect, which leads me to another structural constraint that we must always try to confront, and that is the role of international financial institutions in constraining our so-called fiscal space. When the IMF and the World Bank and all these bilateral lenders tell us that regardless of what you went through in the pandemic, you must pay up your debts. And if the IMF restricts its issuance of special drawing rights, telling developing countries, especially in Asia, that you must pay up your debts, leading up to many of the defaults that we have been seeing in Sri Lanka and recently in the restructuring program in Pakistan, that already tells our governments that you must spend less on social protection and more on debt servicing. So we must not separate these two and allow these critiques of the international financial institutions and our own authoritarian government's priorities to be at the centerpiece of the discussion, especially when labor movements assert that we must have greater social protection. Because when we look at the size of the government budgets, we really have the money. It's a matter of knowing and demanding for the allocation to be for our own interests and not for those in power. There, thank you.
I thank all the panelists and the participants for being patient and making this first day of the conference successful. I will hand over the mic to Tilak, I think. Chair for. Yes, over.
Great, thank you. We are on time because we started 15 minutes late and we finished just 15 minutes late. That's fine. Okay, thank you so much. So maybe it's a tiring day for everyone, so be fresh. And we shall see 6:15 in the lobby. Was there? What was there? There. Thank you, thank you. 6:15, we'll be meeting in lobby. So we'll walk about 8 minutes and we'll experience Nepali culture. Thank you.